Welcome back to Biblical Reality Check. Every story you've heard so far on this channel, Adam and Eve creating the false self, Moses discovering his I am identity, Job realizing he never truly knew his I am self, and Noah preserving the lineage of that identity through collapse. All of it leads here to Jesus, not as a distant figure, but as the revelation of the true self you've been searching for. And this long form episode opens our new series on Jesus and the false self, the survival identity that hides beneath our patterns, narratives, and adaptations. Most people think Jesus came to start a religion. But if you listen closely to his words, not the interpretations, not the institutions, not the layers added later, you realize he came to reveal something far more radical: identity. Not the identity you perform, not the identity shaped by your past, your trauma, your wounds, or your environment, but the identity beneath it all, the one untouched by story. Jesus reveals your true identity, the one shaped by truth, the one beneath conditioning, the one beneath fear, the I am. And once you remember that, your entire life reorganizes around that awareness. But Jesus doesn't just teach identity, he embodies it. He is what it looks like when a human being is no longer fused with the survival self, the approval self, the performing self, or the inherited self. He is the human being fully aligned with the I am. Modern neuroscience, supported by contemporary cognitive research on meta-awareness and self-processing, tells us that beneath all thoughts, emotions, and narratives, there is a stable field of awareness, the observing self. It doesn't change when your mood changes. It doesn't collapse when your circumstances collapse. It simply is. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, Jesus speaks directly to that layer when he says, "You are the light of the world." He doesn't say you will be someday. He doesn't say you have to earn it. He says you are, without qualification. Jesus knew that most people don't live from identity, they live from adaptation. Psychology calls this adaptive self the false self, the version of you built from fear, approval, and survival, the self that learned to shrink, perform, hide, and please. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 25, Jesus calls that self the one who loses his life. Not literal losing life, but the life built on illusion. And he then goes on to say, whoever loses that life finds the real one. Jesus was teaching identity work long before psychology had language for it. When Jesus steps onto the scene, he immediately disrupts the old identity structures. All the family labels, religious roles, social categories, and reputation narratives we use to define ourselves. In Mark's gospel, when his family tries to pull him back into the old identity, he says, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Not to reject them, but to show that identity is not inherited, it's awakened. Jesus doesn't perform holiness. He doesn't perform righteousness. He doesn't even perform spirituality. He eats with the wrong people. He heals on the wrong days. He breaks the rules built to protect the false self. And when the Pharisees accuse him of being a glutton and a drunk in Matthew 11:19, he doesn't defend his reputation because he's not living from reputation. He's living from identity. Jesus says in John chapter 8, verse 58, before Abraham was, I am. He isn't making a theological claim the way people think. He's revealing the eternal identity beneath the false ego self. He's saying, the I am you saw in the burning bush, the I am that called Abraham, the I am that spoke through the prophets is the same I am that lives in you. This is why his teachings always point inward. The kingdom is within you. The Father and I are one. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I am in you, and you are in me. He's not pointing to an external deity. He's pointing to the inner source. Every healing story is actually an identity story. He doesn't say, be healed. He says in Mark 5:34, your faith has made you whole. In Matthew 9:29, he says, according to your faith, be it unto you. And in John 5:6, he says, do you want to be made well? And to the woman caught in adultery, the one the Pharisees wanted to stone, he says, go and sin no more, not as moral policing, but as identity restoration. Because sin simply means missing your true identity. He is restoring people to the self beneath the wound, beneath the story, beneath all the survival patterns. Jesus is what it looks like when a human being releases the inherited identity, refuses the performing identity, dissolves the survival identity, and awakens to the I am identity. He is the human being fully aligned with the divine within. He didn't want us to worship from a distance. He was teaching us to awaken from within. This is why Jesus' message still cuts straight through the human condition. He wasn't speaking to the identity you constructed to survive. He was speaking to the awareness beneath it. The false self is reactive, loud, and shaped by the past. The true self is steady, quiet, and untouched by fear. Jesus didn't come to strengthen the survival self. He came to reveal the self that existed before the adaptation. Because the moment you recognize the false self, you're no longer fused with it. The moment you see the patterns, you're already stepping out of them. In the short episodes that follow, we're going to examine the false self the way psychology and neuroscience understand it, as a survival identity, a predictive model, a pattern recognition system built from early environments. Jesus reveals the false self using the language of Scripture. Modern science reveals it mechanically. Together, they expose the same illusion. Thanks for watching.